The laughter exploded across the ballroom the moment the drink spilled. Red wine spread across the marble floor like a dark stain, and every head turned toward the girl standing frozen beside the table. Aisha's hands trembled. "I am sorry," she whispered. The crystal glass had slipped from her fingers when someone bumped her arm. Now the expensive designer dress of one of the wealthy guests was soaked. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came the laughter. Not soft laughter. Not forgiving laughter. Cruel laughter. "Well, look at that," a sharp voice said. "The hell can't even hold a glass properly." Aisha's cheeks burned. She looked up slowly and saw the woman whose dress she had ruined glaring at her with open disgust. The woman's name was Vanessa Cole. Everyone in the room knew her. Daughter of a powerful international business family. Rich, influential, untouchable. Vanessa looked Aisha up and down like she was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "Do you even know how much this dress costs?" Vanessa demanded. "I'm really sorry," Aisha said quietly. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had learned a long time ago that humiliation was sometimes the price of survival. Vanessa laughed again. "Oh, I know you're sorry. People like you are always sorry." Aisha lowered her eyes. The ballroom of the five-star hotel glittered with wealth. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Politicians, CEOs, and international investors filled the room. Aisha didn't belong here. She was only working the event. Just another temporary waitress hired for the night. But tonight was important. Very important. The event was a celebration of a massive new investment deal between African corporations and a powerful Korean tech conglomerate. People said the billionaire himself had flown in for it. Kang Ji-hoon, Aisha had heard the name whispered all evening. One of the youngest tech billionaires in the world, cold, brilliant, mysterious. But Aisha had never seen him, and right now, she wished she could disappear completely. Vanessa snapped her fingers. "Manager," she called loudly. Aisha's stomach dropped. The event manager hurried over, his face already tense. "Yes, Miss Cole?" Vanessa pointed directly at Aisha. "Get her out of here." Now, the manager turned to Aisha, his expression hard. "What happened?" "I spilled the wine," Vanessa said before Aisha could speak. "On my dress. Completely ruined it." The manager sighed heavily. "Aisha," he said quietly, "step outside." The humiliation deepened. Guests nearby were whispering. Some of them were filming with their phones. Aisha felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry," she said again. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Just go." Aisha slowly placed the tray down and walked toward the exit. Her heart pounded in her chest. Behind her, the laughter continued. But she kept walking, step by step, because she had learned something important. Growing up poor, dignity wasn't given. Sometimes you had to carry it quietly while the world tried to crush it. Outside the ballroom, the night air was cool. Aisha leaned against the wall and finally let out a shaky breath. The manager came out moments later. "You can go home," he said. "But my shift isn't over," Aisha replied. "It is now." She nodded slowly. "I understand." He hesitated, then softened slightly. "Look, those people are powerful. It's better not to argue." "I know." Aisha picked up her small bag. Tonight's pay would have helped with rent, but there was nothing she could do now. She stepped outside the hotel. The city light stretched endlessly across the skyline. Lagos at night was loud, alive, and restless. Aisha walked slowly down the steps. Just as she reached the street, a calm voice spoke behind her. "Wait." She turned. A tall man in a dark suit stood near the entrance. He had sharp features, calm eyes, and an air of quiet authority. He looked unfamiliar, but something about him felt powerful. He held out a hand. "You dropped this." Aisha blinked. In his hand was the small notebook she used for writing. "Oh, thank you," she said quickly. She reached for it. Their fingers brushed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The man studied her face carefully. "You handled that situation better than most people would," he said. Aisha forced a small smile. "Not much else I could do." He tilted his head slightly. Most people would have shouted. "I can't afford to shout." That made him pause. "Why not?" "Because shouting doesn't pay rent." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Fair point." She clutched her notebook. "Thank you again." She started to walk away. But the man spoke again. "Why were they laughing at you?" Aisha stopped. She considered lying. Instead, she shrugged. "I spilled wine on someone important, and that justifies humiliation." Aisha looked back at him. His tone had changed. "It carried quiet displeasure. It's normal," she said softly. People like them don't see people like me. The man's eyes darkened slightly. People like you. People without money. Silence lingered between them. Then he asked something unexpected. What's your name? Aisha. I'm Ji-hoon. She nodded politely. Nice to meet you. She assumed he was another business guest, perhaps a junior executive. He didn't look like the kind of man who would care about a waitress being humiliated. Yet he had followed her outside, which was strange. You should go back inside, she said. Your event is still happening. He watched her carefully. I might. Aisha gave a small nod and began walking down the street. Ji-hoon stood there for a long moment, watching her disappear into the night. Then he turned and walked back into the ballroom. Inside, the party continued like nothing had happened. Vanessa laughed with her friends near the bar. The event manager rushed around nervously. No one noticed Ji-hoon entering until he stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room. A microphone was handed to him. The room slowly quieted. Whispers spread. That's him, the billionaire. Kang Ji-hoon. Vanessa's smile froze. The room fell silent as Ji-hoon spoke calmly. Good evening. His voice carried easily across the ballroom. I hope you're all enjoying the celebration. Polite applause followed, but Ji-hoon's eyes scanned the room slowly, coldly. Then he said something no one expected. Before we continue, I'd like to address something that happened earlier tonight. Confusion spread across the crowd. Vanessa's brow furrowed. Ji-hoon's voice remained calm. A young woman working here was publicly humiliated. The room stiffened. Some guests shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa's expression hardened. Ji-hoon continued. I find that disappointing. A ripple of tension moved through the room. Vanessa stepped forward. Oh, please, she said lightly. It was just a clumsy waitress, hardly worth discussing. Ji-hoon looked directly at her. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Is that so? Vanessa shrugged. She ruined my dress, and that gives you the right to humiliate her. Vanessa laughed awkwardly. You're exaggerating. Ji-hoon didn't smile. Why? Silence followed. Then Ji-hoon turned to the crowd. In business, character matters. How people treat those with less power than them tells you everything about who they are. No one spoke. Ji-hoon handed the microphone back to the host. I think I've seen enough tonight. And then he walked off the stage. The entire ballroom buzzed with shock. Vanessa's face flushed with anger. How dare he embarrass me like that? She hissed, but Ji-hoon didn't care. He walked out of the hotel calmly. His driver opened the car door. Sir? Ji-hoon paused before getting inside. Find the girl who worked here tonight, he said. The waitress? Yes. The driver nodded. Her name is Aisha. Ji-hoon looked back at the hotel. I want to meet her again. Meanwhile, Aisha sat on a bus heading home, staring out the window. She thought the night was over. She thought the humiliation was just another painful moment in her life. She had no idea that the quiet man she met outside the hotel was one of the most powerful billionaires in the world, and she had absolutely no idea that their paths were about to collide again in a way that would change her entire life. Because sometimes the people the world humiliates the most are the ones destiny chooses to lift the highest, and when that moment comes, the same people who laughed are the ones left speechless. Aisha just didn't know yet that her story was only beginning. And somewhere in the city, Kang Ji-hoon was already making a decision that would shock everyone, especially the people who had humiliated her. The bus rattled along the crowded road as Aisha leaned her head against the window. Streetlights blurred past in long streaks of yellow. Her chest still felt tight. She had been embarrassed before in her life, but something about tonight had cut deeper than usual. Maybe it was the laughter, or maybe it was the way everyone had looked at her, like she was invisible. She sighed quietly. Forget it, she whispered to herself. Life had never been easy for her. She had grown up in a small apartment with her mother in one of the older parts of the city. Her mother worked long hours as a tailor, sewing clothes late into the night just to keep food on the table. Aisha had learned early that dreams were a luxury people like them couldn't afford. Yet somehow, she still had them. In her small bag was the notebook the man had returned earlier. Inside it were pages filled with ideas, business ideas, plans, market observations, things she had studied quietly while working different small jobs. She dreamed of one day building something of her own, something meaningful, but tonight, the dream felt very far away. The bus stopped with a loud hiss. Aisha stepped down and walked the remaining distance to her building. It was old and worn. with cracked walls and narrow staircases when she entered the apartment. Her mother looked up from the sewing machine. "You're home early," her mother said. Aisha forced a small smile. The event ended sooner than expected. Her mother studied her face carefully. Something happened. Aisha hesitated. Then she shrugged lightly. Just a small mistake at work. Her mother sighed and turned to the sewing machine. "Aisha, you work too hard for people who don't appreciate you. I'm okay." "Mama," her mother walked over and touched her cheek gently. "You're stronger than you should have to be." Aisha smiled softly. "I learned from you." They shared a quiet moment before her mother returned to her sewing. Later that night, Aisha lay in bed staring at the ceiling. But sleep didn't come easily. Her mind kept replaying the humiliation. Vanessa's voice, the laughter, and strangely, the calm face of the man outside the hotel. Ji-hoon. He had looked at her differently, not with pity, not with arrogance, just curiosity. It was strange, but by morning, she had pushed the thought away. Life moved on. The next day, Aisha returned to one of her regular jobs. She worked part-time at a small bookstore downtown. The shop smelled of paper and coffee. It was quiet, peaceful. The kind of place where people came to think. Aisha loved it. She was arranging books on a shelf when the doorbell chimed. She didn't look up immediately. "Welcome," she said automatically. Footsteps approached the counter. Then a familiar voice spoke. "Good morning, Aisha." Her hands froze. Slowly, she looked up. Ji-hoon stood in front of the counter, dressed simply in a dark coat, calm as ever. Aisha blinked. "Oh, it's you." He gave a small nod. "You seem surprised. I didn't expect to see you here." "I asked around." That made her eyebrows lift. "You ask around?" "Yes." "Why?" Ji-hoon glanced around the quiet bookstore. "May we talk?" Aisha hesitated. Her boss wasn't around, and the shop was empty. "Okay," she said cautiously. Ji-hoon picked up one of the books from the counter. "You like business books?" Aisha nodded. "I like learning." "You study business?" "I try to." "What do you mean?" "I can't afford university right now," she said simply. "So I teach myself." Ji-hoon flipped through the book slowly. "What kind of business interests you?" Aisha hesitated. Then she shrugged. "I've been studying local markets." Ji-hoon's eyes sharpened slightly. "Tell me." She looked uncertain. "You probably won't find it interesting." "Try me," Aisha sighed. "Okay." For example, a lot of small farmers outside the city struggle to sell directly to urban buyers. There are too many middlemen taking profits. Ji-hoon listened quietly. "So you're suggesting a digital marketplace that connects farmers directly to city distributors?" He raised an eyebrow. "That's ambitious." She shrugged again. "Just an idea, and the logistics." "I've thought about that too." She reached for her notebook and flipped to a page. Ji-hoon leaned closer as she showed him. "Routes, distribution, models, cost breakdowns." Ji-hoon's expression slowly changed from curiosity to surprise. "You planned all this yourself?" he asked. Aisha nodded. "It's just something I think about." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "You're very intelligent." Aisha laughed awkwardly. "That's not what people usually say about waitresses." Ji-hoon closed the notebook. "People are often wrong." There was a brief silence. Then Aisha asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why did you really come here?" Ji-hoon met her gaze. "Because I wanted to see you again." Her eyes widened slightly. "That's unexpected." "Yes." "Why?" Ji-hoon considered the answer. "Because last night, you were the only person in that room who behaved with dignity." Aisha looked away. "I didn't have much choice." "That's not true." He paused. "Most people would have reacted with anger or shame, and I didn't. You carried yourself with quiet strength." Aisha didn't know what to say. The bell above the door suddenly chimed again. 2 women walked into the bookstore. Aisha immediately recognized them. Vanessa and her friend. Vanessa stopped the moment she saw Aisha behind the counter. Her lips curled slightly. Well, she said loudly. "Look who it is." Aisha's stomach tightened. Vanessa walked slowly through the store, from embarrassing yourself at a luxury event to working in a tiny bookstore. She laughed. "What a fall." Aisha stayed silent. Vanessa leaned on the counter. "You know, my dress from last night cost more than this entire shop." Ji-hoon watched quietly. From the side, Vanessa hadn't noticed him. Yet, Aisha took a slow breath. I said I was. Sorry, Vanessa waved a dismissive hand. Oh please. I'm over it. Then she leaned closer and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Just remember your place next time. Ji-hoon stepped forward. And what place would that be? Vanessa turned the moment she recognized him. Her expression changed instantly. Kang Ji-hoon, she said, with a forced smile. What a surprise. Ji-hoon looked at her calmly. Yes, it is. Vanessa straightened her posture. I didn't expect to see you here. Ji-hoon gestured slightly toward Aisha. I came to see her. The words landed like a stone in water. Vanessa blinked. You came to see her? Yes. Vanessa laughed awkwardly. Oh, that's funny. Ji-hoon didn't laugh. I'm not joking. Vanessa's smile slowly faded. You're serious? Yes. A heavy silence filled the bookstore. Vanessa crossed her arms. You can't possibly be interested in someone like her. Ji-hoon's gaze sharpened. And what exactly does that mean? Vanessa scoffed. She's a waitress, a shop girl. Ji-hoon's voice became colder. And Vanessa shrugged. You're a billionaire. Yes, and she's her. Ji-hoon looked at Aisha briefly before turning back to Vanessa. That's exactly why she interests me. Vanessa's face tightened. I don't understand. Ji-hoon spoke calmly. Because she has something rare. Vanessa frowned. What? Character. The word hit like a slap. Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger. You're insulting me. Ji-hoon didn't respond. He simply turned to Aisha. Would you like to have lunch with me? Aisha blinked in shock. Lunch? Yes. She glanced nervously at Vanessa, then back at Ji-hoon. I'm working. Ji-hoon smiled faintly. I can wait. Vanessa laughed loudly. This is ridiculous. But Ji-hoon ignored her completely. He only looked at Aisha. Waiting. And for the first time since the humiliation at the hotel, Aisha felt something shift, something powerful, because the same man who had the respect of the richest people in the world was standing in a small bookstore, waiting patiently for her answer, and Vanessa could see it. The power dynamic had changed, and she absolutely hated it. But none of them realized yet that this moment was only the beginning, because the more Ji-hoon learned about Aisha, the more determined he would become, and the people who once laughed at her would soon realize something shocking. The girl they humiliated was becoming the billionaire's choice. Aisha stared at Ji-hoon, still trying to process what he had just said. Lunch with him. It sounded unreal. Vanessa let out a sharp laugh beside them. This is unbelievable, she said. You must be doing this to prove a point. Ji-hoon didn't look at her. I don't need to prove anything. Vanessa folded her arms. You're a billionaire. You could have lunch with presidents, CEOs, celebrities, but you're standing here asking a bookstore clerk. Ji-hoon finally turned his head toward her. Yes. The calm certainty in his voice made Vanessa's expression harden. Aisha felt the tension growing around her. She cleared her throat quietly. I don't want to cause trouble. You're not, Ji-hoon said. Vanessa scoffed. Oh, she definitely is. Aisha looked at Ji-hoon again. His expression was calm, patient, almost curious, like he genuinely wanted to hear her answer. She hesitated. Then she said softly, I get off work in 30 minutes. Ji-hoon nodded once. I'll wait. Vanessa stared at them both in disbelief. You're serious? Ji-hoon said nothing. Vanessa grabbed her friend's arm. Come on. She snapped at A as they walked toward the door. Vanessa glanced back at Aisha with cold eyes. This won't end well for you. Then she left. The doorbell chimed again as the door closed. Silence filled the bookstore. Aisha exhaled slowly. I think I just made my life more complicated. Ji-hoon leaned casually against the shelf. Possibly. She looked at him. You enjoy chaos, don't you? Not particularly. Then why do this? Ji-hoon thought for a moment. Because I dislike arrogance, and asking me to lunch fixes that. No, he paused, but recognizing value where others see none does. Aisha looked down at the counter. No one had ever spoken about her like that before. 30 minutes later, they stepped outside together. Ji-hoon's driver opened the door of a sleek black car waiting at the curb. Aisha stopped. You came with that? Yes. She laughed nervously. I've never ridden in a car like that. Then today is a first. She hesitated. then got in. The car pulled smoothly into traffic. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ji-hoon asked, "Do you always let people talk to you the way Vanessa did?" Aisha looked out the window. "Sometimes silence is easier." "Is it?" "Yes." He studied her. "Or is it just safer?" She didn't answer. After a few seconds, she said quietly, "You don't grow up poor without learning when to stay." Quiet. Ji-hoon leaned back. "Slightly. That's unfortunate, but realistic." They arrived at a quiet restaurant overlooking the water. It was elegant, but not overly crowded. When they sat down, Aisha looked around nervously. "Are you sure this place is okay?" "Yes." She laughed softly. "You say everything like it's obvious." Ji-hoon poured her a glass of water. "In my world, decisions are made quickly. In mine, we think about consequences." Ji-hoon rested his arms on the table. "Then let's think about one." Now Aisha raised an eyebrow. "What kind of consequence?" "You." She blinked. "What about me?" "You have ideas, intelligence, vision." She shook her head immediately. "Those are just thoughts in a notebook." Ji-hoon reached into his coat and pulled something out, a small tablet. He tapped the screen and turned it toward her. Aisha looked down. Her eyes widened. The screen showed a digital platform. Design, supply chains, distribution routes, marketplace connections. It looked like a full business model. "What is this?" she asked slowly. "A prototype." "For what?" "For your idea." Aisha stared at him. "You're joking." "I'm not." She looked back at the tablet, trying to process it. "How did you even build this?" Ji-hoon shrugged slightly. "I have very capable engineers." "You had engineers build my idea overnight?" "Yes." "That's insane." "Possibly." Aisha leaned back in disbelief. "Why would you do this?" Ji-hoon answered simply, "Because it's a good idea." "But you barely know me." "I know talent when I see it." Her heart pounded. This could change farmers' lives. Yes. It could change supply chains. Yes. She looked up at him again. "You're serious?" "Yes." Silence hung between them. Finally, she asked, "What do you want in return?" Ji-hoon's answer came without hesitation. "You." Aisha blinked. "Excuse me." "I want you to let it." Her mouth opened slightly. "You mean run the company?" "Yes." "That's impossible." "Why?" "I've never run a company. Most successful founders haven't before they start." She shook her head. "You're taking a huge risk." Ji-hoon leaned forward. "Slightly. I've built my career on recognizing opportunity. And I'm an opportunity." "Yes." Aisha looked down at her hands. The girl who had been humiliated at a luxury hotel the night before was now sitting across from a billionaire offering her a chance to build a company. It felt unreal. "You don't know what people will say," she said quietly. "I don't care. They'll think I manipulated you." Ji-hoon shrugged. "They already think many things about me." She laughed softly. "That's true." For a moment they simply looked at each other. Then Ji-hoon said something unexpected. "You know, Vanessa called me this morning." Aisha raised an eyebrow. "She did?" "Yes." "What did she want?" "She invited me to dinner. And I declined. Because of me." "Yes." Aisha stared at him. "You barely know me." Ji-hoon's gaze softened slightly. "Sometimes you don't need years to recognize someone's character." She looked away, feeling warmth rise to her cheeks. "You're making this very difficult to believe." Ji-hoon smiled faintly. "Believe it slowly then." Days turned into weeks. Ji-hoon kept his word. His team helped Aisha develop the platform. Farmers began signing up. Distributors showed interest. The idea that once lived only in her notebook started becoming real. News of the partnership spread quickly through business circles. Many people were shocked. Some admired the bold move, others were skeptical, and Vanessa was furious. One evening at a high-profile business gala, whispers filled the room. "Have you heard? The billionaire's new partner." That girl from the bookstore. Vanessa stood near the champagne table, her jaw tight. Then the doors opened. The room fell silent. Aisha walked in beside Ji-hoon. She wore a simple but elegant dress. Her posture was calm, confident. Nothing like the nervous waitress they had laughed at weeks earlier. Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. Guests began whispering again. "That's her. She's beautiful. She's brilliant." Apparently, Ji-hoon and Aisha walked calmly through the crowd. One of the investors approached them. "Miss Aisha, Your agricultural platform has already attracted international interest. She smiled politely. We're just getting started. Vanessa could barely contain her anger. She walked directly toward them. So it's true, she said. Sharply, Aisha turned calmly. Yes. Vanessa looked at Ji-hoon. You chose her. Yes, Vanessa scoffed. This is absurd. Ji-hoon's voice remained calm. Why? She embarrassed herself at a party, and now she's building a company. Vanessa's face flushed. She's beneath you. Ji-hoon looked at Aisha for a moment before answering. No, then he said the words that silenced the entire conversation. She's exactly who I choose. The room fell quiet. Aisha felt her heart race. But she stood tall, because in that moment she realized something powerful. The humiliation that once felt like the lowest point of her life had become the beginning of something extraordinary. Vanessa stared at them both, speechless, and around the room, people began to see the truth. The girl they once laughed at, the girl they humiliated, the girl they dismissed as nothing, had become the woman standing beside a billionaire, not because of luck, but because of her intelligence, resilience, and character. And now the same people who laughed at her were the ones watching in stunned silence, because the African girl they humiliated had become the billionaire's choice.